Why not call a cat and a dog furry mammals? Well, children don't do that. They go to cat and dog, and people who studied the acquisition of language have found that there are basic level categories that children pick up first, and they're all
Hey, that's live.
short words. And the words are short because they've been around a long time, because they seem to reflect the natural level at which people perceive the world. But none of that's obvious. You know,
Let's see if this all plugged together well enough.
Just call them animals, which we do sometimes. So, anyway,
Well, it's possible that's not working at all anymore. Hello. Welcome to PowerBlock. I'm running out of assets to produce for this thing, or at least meshes. I'm going to be talking over the professor. I'm kind of listening to this lecture about this. We have a weird overlay I want to try out that shows like I guess it shows like mouse direction and whether or not I'm clicking and scrolling. If that's useful, let me know. I'm focusing down this guy right here, which I don't know, maybe that is kind of cool. Sorry, I've been having I don't even know if it's down or depressed, just kind of a slow type week, trying to be available, useful. It's been alright. Anyway, here's the arm that's left. There's this basically, and these like inlays, the contents of this, or of these like rows here. I might add, if I can figure it out, blending shapes to character, to the character prototype or whatever, so we can make our glowing people that are along this chain, that are, you know, in these like assembly rows. And I don't know, more pylons, less time. Anyway, and hang out for a couple hours. Welcome to PowerBlock on Mint Potion. I was looking for mouse overlays. If you guys know of any better ones, let me know. I'll be peeking over to chat periodically. Trying to figure out what's going on here with is this thing muted? Good. With our couch bot, our patrons hanging out in here, lovely supporters. I love to shout out those who are online: Vizugu, Dogan, Justin Morovitz, K to the K, Kululu, T-Mad40 Blue, A Torque, Shauna Mark, Jimbo 1000, Jimbo Million, Jimbo 100,000, Josiah Music, Matt Matat, Nest Dude, Paradoxogen, and of course Tukart, who I assume is hanging out with us. It's pretty regular for the regulars. And there's also some kind of ridiculous visualization that I got from T-Mad40 Blue. You kind of tipped me off to this site. So it's driven by the audio that we're listening to right now, this lecture. But we can also drive that with any sound in the building. So we're going to pipe audio to that in later streams soon. But yeah, first this. If you guys have music, of course, please lay it on me. I think we listened to Ashita recently. We have a lot of auto hosts. That's nice. I'm just trying to make the thing. And this is that thing. So I build it kind of up like every other thing, piece by piece, base by base. And next is just a box. So I tab over to Photoshop so I can just kind of switch back and forth. Let's see. That's actually pretty good. I like this keyboard overlay thing. It's neat. It does its job. And hopefully you enjoy our new frames. These are all made by Robbie, mostly, but I'm into it. Can definitely get a little bit more real estate out of it, I think, but for the time being,
So I brought a light behind the computer.
it's a pretty cool thing.
So I thought, aha.
So I thought, aha.
I went to the fuse box and took a
And I guess maybe the stream will be about the duration of this lecture.
oh, the power's gone. So then I went outside.
Just about.
Power was out. None of the street lights were working.
Anyway, where's the next piece? So now I'm moving up. I just finished this thing, yeah? Something like it. And so this is, this is very boxy. That's pretty straightforward. So we're gonna do that. And to make a box, you need to be the box. I enabled interactive modeling, or the interactive setting for placing and creating new objects.
An event like that happens about every 150 years, and if we had one now, it would take out all of our electronics, like one of the big ones. There was a big one back in the late 1800s. Everything, satellites, computers, cars, everything, gone. And so that's a big problem.
Cool. So I'm using my super low resolution screen to just line up this axis along that box, or this line, right?
Okay, so what did I conclude from that? Well,
I'm going to scale it down and kind of draw an edge along the outside of it. Maybe 2 edges to get that shape out of it. So I'm going to press Shift, as you can see. This is actually kind of cool. It doesn't show the right click of the mouse, but I guess it does, but it's just outside of the clipping area of that layer. It's kind of over here. Yeah, that's reasonable. So shift right clicking brings up these menus, which is basically the context for like what you can do with an edge. And I know I'm gonna want this type of shape, so I'm gonna offset 2 edges here. Press Q to select and move this guy down. Just to get that shape. Maybe I'll move this whole guy. This whole old guy. Because that's the shape that's sticking out of the back here. So your stupid computer doesn't malfunction. I've been watching NES Dude a lot this week. I'm really, I don't know if inspired is the right word, but that he's got the gamer edge. He's got the drive to improve steadily.
Well, the stability of your computer is dependent on the stability of the political system, but of course it is, because if the political system mucks up and the economic system goes, then people don't go out and work to fix things, and things are breaking all the time. That's their normal state, is broken, not working. And that's all.
What if that's the same as just scaling out these, these edges? Like so?
Tiny conceptions of the computer while you're using it, and you only get a glimpse of what the computer is really like when it doesn't work. Then it's when it becomes a complex object, right? As long as it's working, then
maybe
your stupid perceptions are perfectly fine to get the job done. And that's another indication that what you're using your perceptions for is to get the job done. And how you specify exactly the level
it's
of resolution
perfect.
that you should be operating at.
I wonder how these 2 things connect.
Something like you default to the simplest level that moves you to the next step. So for example, and generally that is what you should do. If you're having an argument with someone that you have a long-term relationship with, you can start by arguing about what the little argument is about, or you can immediately cascade into whether or not you should have a relationship with this person at all, or even into whether or not you should even bother with relationships, which is, every time there's an argument, that question is a reasonable question to have emerge, or at least it's in the realm of potential reasonable questions, but it doesn't seem useful to jump to the most catastrophic possible explanation every time some minor thing goes wrong. That's what happens to people who have an anxiety disorder. And that's what happens to people who are depressed, right? They can't bind the anomaly. And so what happens is it tends to propagate up the entire system until it takes out their highest order conceptualizations. You know, so if you're seriously depressed, maybe you'll watch a news article about something stupid and you'll think, Jesus, why should I even be alive? You know, and I'm dead serious about that. If you score like 60 on the Beck Depression Inventory, which puts you way the hell up in the depressed range, anything that happens to you that's negative will trigger
These kind of need to overlap.
thoughts, roughly speaking. And sometimes even positive things will do it, because there are very few positive things that happen.
Such dense material.
With them, some threat.
How do you be so cheery with...
So, you know, one mystery, it's a big mystery, is why don't you fall into a catastrophic depression every time something little goes wrong? Because it's not, that level of analysis is not self-evident. And you see this with people who are high in neuroticism too, you know. Their trivial fluctuations at their workplace or in their relationships or in their health will produce a disproportionate negative.
Let's get that to fit. I'm thinking about how it bends, right? And this part actually seems like it would be kind of squishy. Yeah? Who's chatting with me? All of you hosts, man. I'm gonna add all you back.
The whole damn environment has got dangerous on you. And sometimes you should just brush it off because, you know, its net consequence is low. Like, how do you
I was trying to play Sonic 3 last night. Just to do it. Oh, and also because I hear that there might be a race at the next Chili Dog Fest. I don't want to suck at that. Or if I can try. It was a good idea for an event that Doggin came up with. Or Dogen. Thank you to everyone. Everyone hosting our channel is probably offline or not streaming.
They're really getting thin. And so that produces another problem, which no one would have ever, you wouldn't expect, and that is, you know, that
alright. This does have like a kind of bend in it. And so that's something that's a little bit interesting. It's like there's this bend that goes around that axis, right? So maybe the next piece is like a clamp, a U-shaped hook. And the piece at the end of it seems to... Oh. I just want a new layer. The piece at the end of it, which is... Wow, so this is below everything. I just want to take more notes. So there's, what, this much left? Let's say that's done. It kind of blends into that piece. There's like a ridge or a hook. But then we have this thing that has a rotation at the end of that. And then that'll rotate an arm that has another one of these. I guess they're like segmented kind of U-shapes. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but I'm willing to try.
It's like Occam's razor in the scientific world, right? You want to use the simplest explanation that it's not that fits the facts, because you don't organize your perceptions by facts. It's kind of like you want to use the simplest tool you could possibly manage to fix the problem. So you don't, when your car has a flat tire, you don't buy a new car. You fix the flat tire if you can figure out how to do it. And so you go for the thing that will put the tool back together with the minimum involvement of time and effort. It's something like that. And you care about that because you have limited time and you have limited resources. And so it makes sense for you to conserve them. And I'm telling you that partly for practical reasons too, because this is a very useful thing to know. If you're arguing with someone, you want to argue about the smallest possible thing that you could argue about that might fix the problem. You want to really specify. It's like, what's going on at a micro level, and what's the minimum that I would require to be satisfied without. And this is especially true in intimate relationships. It's like, if someone's bugging you and you want them to change, you think, well, how can I be minimally bothered by this, and what's the tiniest amount of change I could request that might satisfy me? Because otherwise, the argument will come unglued, and every time you guys try to discuss a problem, you'll start talking about whether you should even be together, and then you're done, because you'll never solve the problem. And then you won't be together, because you'll never solve the problem. So Okay. So here's a way to think about perception. So let's say that this is the thing you're trying to look at. I call that the thing in itself. Now, that's a schematic of a thing in itself. So the thing in itself, that's an old philosophical concept, and I think it came from Kant, but I'm not sure about that. It might be older than that. And the thing in itself is what you could see if you could see everything about something, but you can't. So it's a hypothetical entity. And maybe, who knows, if I
You've become interestingly deformed. Let's not do that.
level of your being from the subatomic up to the this level of perception, and then beyond, I could see your family relationships. I could see how they were nested in your societal relationships, economic relationships, political relationships, the ecosystem as a whole. Like I would see all these levels at the same time. Of course, I don't, because I can't. What I see instead is, first of all, you're radically simplified by my senses because they're just not acute enough to say see you at a microscopic level. And they're not comprehensive enough to see your connections across time. So my senses filter a bunch of you from me right away. And then I'm also filtered from you by your willingness to act like I want while we're together. Because you could be doing all sorts of strange things at the moment, but you're not. And so you're helping me simplify my perceptions of you by agreeing to play the same game that I'm playing while we occupy the same space. And that's basically politeness. That's the mark of someone who's well socialized. You walk in somewhere, you get the game, you play the game, and you don't scare the hell out of everybody. And that's partly how we keep our emotions stabilized, because if you're like a Freudian, you think, well, as long as your ego is well constituted, you can keep your emotions under control. It's like, yes and no, mostly no. I like the Piagetian idea better, which is, if you're well socialized, you're awake enough to identify the game that's going on wherever you go. And then you play that game immediately, and so do all the other socialized primates, and so then you can just understand the game. You don't have to understand them, thank God. You could just understand the game, and as long as the game continues, you don't have to be nervous, because you at least know what's going to happen, and maybe you even know how to get what you want in that game. And so that, again, that's really worth thinking about, because we talked about this before, about why people want to maintain their culture. It isn't just because their culture is a belief system that helps them orient themselves in the world. It's because a belief system is a game that everyone who shares that belief system is playing, and the fact that everybody's playing means nobody needs to get upset. So it isn't like the belief system is directly inhibiting the emotions. That isn't how it works. So, and it's not like the culture is just a belief system. It's only secondarily a belief system, man. Mostly it's a game that people are actively engaging in. That's way more important than the beliefs that go along with it. You don't even need the damn beliefs. That's why wolves can live with each other. They don't know they don't have a belief system exactly. Mostly they have a game. It's the wolf game, roughly speaking, and all the wolves know how to play it. So that's that. That's how they keep themselves organized in their packs. A lot of it's externalized. And so anyway, the thing in itself, that's a very complicated thing. It's got multiple dimensions, multiple levels. And then it's worse than that, because it doesn't only have multiple levels, but all of those levels move across time, and every one of those levels shifts as it moves across time. And so I like to think
It's like a weighted thing in there. Yes.
I think that's a good model. I think that's why we like
Oh, it's Dogan 3. Dogan, we're listening to a psychology professor by the name of Jordan Peterson. We're in the middle of this course called Maps of Meaning, which is named after his book. I did refund Sonic, but I found a really great emulator. A lot of the issues were that it just did not have really good rendering options, and there was that complex mode of room, or whatever the heck it was that you used to like load into their emulation, that I was just meh about. not really feeling it. So maybe I'll find a more worthy indie thing that's, how many copies of this game do you need to own? Is kind of the question. So I've been kind of messing with this today, getting it there. I don't have many more assets, as I kind of said a minute ago. I want to pose the humanoids that we have, um, so that we can place them in the scene, and give them a good glowy material. I really want to do rigs so that I can make this type of, these type of poses possible. It looks like, oh no, this is the same kind of base. They're just separated. But we're going to do that. Figure out, is it like refueling? I don't know. But I'm just about ready to. I want to position them in Maya before texturing them or while texturing them, because they're all ready for that. We're all ready to be textured. And we have a tool called Quixel, which will help with a lot of that stuff. But hello. But I still want to race with you guys. Yeah. It's just I like the other, but yeah, I like the other rendering options. I got to level like, I don't know, 4 or something like that. I don't know how many there are in the game, but how long does it take you to get through a run of Sonic 3 and Knuckles? Because I imagine it's going to be quite some time. No? Yes. And aren't you playing a game? What are you doing watching me 3D model? I'm just kidding. Yes. No. Yes. And I think an ideology does that to people very, very common. If I tell you the same story, tell me, okay? Because I don't want to tell you the same story, but I might. So she went down to Argentina after a bunch of money had got out of Argentina because of a financial collapse. And she went to a factory that had been padlocked, and it was a heavy machinery factory. And the workers had decided they were going to undo the padlocks and go build machines, hell with the owner who shut it down. And so she went down and made this movie and followed these workers around and, showed how catastrophic their lives had been because they'd lost their livelihood in this big financial crash. And so that was really interesting. But then she went and interviewed the guy who owned the factory, and she treated him like he was like a cipher in some sense. Instead of asking him how he got the factory, what he wanted to do with it, how it fit in with his life plans, why he shut it down instead of continuing it, she didn't get the backstory on him. She just left him in the evil capitalist box and went on with the film. And it was like, it wasn't like what she did wasn't true. But it was only half true, and it was half true because she could perceive the complexity. You have rehearsals tomorrow? Or Wednesday? I have a meeting tomorrow. We have rehearsals for a new thing that we want to add to Small Window that honestly I completely forgot about. Hey. But I guess that's gonna happen. I will be more forgetful in the future. Don't worry about it.
Have a question about it. Well, you can take this infinite set of facts and then you subject it to your filters and you let some of the facts through and they're facts.
Just give it some underside detail that we're never going to see. What's up with you?
And that's what the girl it's like, yeah, you got the basketball count right, but you missed the big primate.
Okay.
And you might say, well, your priorities were a bit skewed in that circumstance because
did I see the Rhythmic Ultimate Sale? It is the cheapest real music program on the 3DS. I have not. I think I had a flyer, I think. Let me check out what that game is. Hold on. Because if I recall...
Well, and with your words, it's even more. So you say, well, you can't see the thing in itself because it's too complex. So
what is this?
It's simpler than it is.
Oh, yeah. Wait, can you buy a Steam game on DS?
Is dependent on your aims. So that's a vicious one because it pulls the
That's pretty slick.
that you're ensconced within into your perceptions. It pulls it into the realm of facts itself. And then you do another.
Okay, no crossbuy. Man, let me pause this guy real quick to hear what this thing can do. Because I don't think it was this. It must have been another tool that I saw, like, cool. So what do they use? Just like... What are the sound production capabilities? You know, you ever have that moment in your day where you lose your smoothie? Is this their expansion? Trailer on YouTube. So I'll do. What? U.com. Go to U.com. Is there a trailer? Rock expansion. I guess this would be it.
Rated everyone.
Let's watch somebody else's trailer. We are not in no way sponsored. Neat. So you can like make patterns. Alright. Label and sequence them. So then what happens on the top screen if all this shit's going on down here? This is the new... Do you think that, like, would you buy like Switch type tools? Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I don't have it either. I have a hard time. Like, I use the music creation tools from WarioWare, I think DIY on the DS. Like I used that for sequencing for a little while because it was just, you know, this like really limited palette of really goofy like cat and dog noises, right? The Mario Paint palette of sounds. That was a lot of fun. I want to know more about you. So there's like that detail. And this, I think, if it rotates, or maybe this next part rotates. I don't know. This isn't really. No, no, I don't. But yeah, it's a weird like. It's I don't know. It's a nice thing. It's one of those reasons why like you just want like an OP1. Like you don't want to buy one, but it's just like. But if somebody was daring enough to acquire one on my behalf and give it to me, I totally would, you know, accept the gift of the OP1. But it's like this hardware that costs as much as Ableton, and you know, it gets some updates and it has kind of nice cute limitations, but oh, excuse me. It looks like it's tank proof. I'm into that kind of stuff. Yeah, we're gonna argue about science and religion on Twitch. It's perfect. The Korg M. See, I'm into that though. The Korg M1, like they're actually the Korg stuff, like the DS10 and all that, actually has like a synthesis engine that's like worth a damn, right? That seems worth the struggle. And I don't know if I can guarantee the same thing for all of these tools, but it's definitely worth it. Also, how do you, I don't know, you'd have to like record to Audacity or something, or You know what I mean?
because they
Get
don't
them to
have
work together.
the idea that
Somebody's here.
well, different
I think it might be Robert Altergagman Engmanzilla,
for different purposes. They don't have the sense that your
which is
definition
pretty
of
cool.
truth is actually something like a tool rather than an ontological statement about the reality of the world. And so the
But yeah, this is you know, I think
proposition that the
yeah,
idea
this is
that
how I spend
the
my
world
spare
was
time.
5,000 years ago is literally true. And they get the 5,000 year estimate, by the way, by going through the genealogies in the Old Testament and adding up the hypothetical ages and figuring out, you know, how long before Moses, Adam lived. And some bishop did that back in the, I think it was in the mid 1800s.
Real science.
But it was somewhere back.
Yeah.
More or less, that's been accepted as canonical
Yeah, looks alright.
ever since. And then the scientists say, well, yeah,
And as ever,
just wrong.
oh howdy.
That's the only difference there is between
What?
the fundamentalists and the atheist scientists. The fundamentalists,
Oh yeah.
those are
I don't know.
scientific truths.
I guess I was talking to Preston about like
Well, they're scientific truths.
what would be like a good
Well,
way to
that's a stupid argument.
teach, like when you're using a program.
One is that
So use I don't know, shortcut keys on screen. Since a lot of stuff is out on that side of the screen, it kind of made sense. I'm trying it out.
modern people tend to think that you think like a scientist.
It'd be great if I was playing like
First of all,
Overwatch or something and show everyone how bad I am. Like, yeah.
you don't think like a scientist at all. So one of the things, for example, that characterizes your thinking
Yeah.
is bias. And so if you have a theory, what you do is wander around in the world
Okay,
and
okay.
find reasons why it's true. And the scientist does exactly the opposite.
A male-to-male cable. Yeah, yeah.
Narrow domain where he or she is actually capable of being a scientist. And what they have is a theory and look for a way to prove
I think,
believe me, you don't run around doing that.
yeah, that's one of the first things I sampled into like GarageBand when I was learning, like when I was learning how to make music with a computer. Was like the Game Boy Advance startup.
Axioms of the scientific method.
All worth it. Everything. I just want something to, I don't know, like is that, I just want to stop succumbing to distractions in my life. You guys, this Nintendo is supposed to come out in a couple of days. There you go. Let's be honest. I haven't been excited about a console in like 10 years.
Might argue with that and say, well, what about the Greeks and other people who are fairly technologically sophisticated or geometry and that kind of thing?
So here's to that not sucking.
Bare precursors to the idea of empirical observation. Aristotle, for example,
But no, we're not doing that. That is something we're not going to do. What I will do is make this more of a square, oblong shape. Favorite startup sound is PlayStation 1. Yeah. I don't remember this. You said Saturn? I thought it was, for some reason I said Dreamcast. Yeah. All the worthwhile moments.
So it's not plausible if you know anything about the history.
And this can't rotate past that thing. Not like anyone will notice. They're gonna be like, dude, come on, these overlapping faces. It's not. That's what things that no one says ever.
Part of the reason is though that everyone, fundamentalists included, really believes
Let's do that again. So I'm pressing Control. G is repeating the tool. I'm pressing Shift to just make an evenly shaped, an equilateral cube here. That's perfect. Do. Can I get you to line up with that? No, not there. We go. Miracles do happen. Sorta. That didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. So I'm holding V, which you can see good, and then middle mousing to hopefully this middle vertex, and that'll get me quickly aligned. Miracles, they just happened. But always free model it. I don't have like a lot of catchphrases. I don't have the energy of The catchphrasey.
One of the fundamental scientific claims, roughly speaking, is that every fact is of equal utility, at least from a scientific perspective.
I just, modeling is such a...
It's not exactly.
Actually, unwrapping is like the meditative activity. Modeling is the get angry at your computer activity. Hey, there's my drink.
Saying that it's more useful than another, so I don't think that that's a really good exception. Okay, so
I have to remind these guys.
you got the scientific atheists on one end, and you got the
In an hour, around the time I'm done. I don't even know how long I've been up for. I doubt it's been 45 minutes.
there's so much power in scientific
Hey, let's see, who's around? People. Hey, people.
contradiction.
Chat is hidden
The old
from memory.
archaic stories, if
Now you guys are
you
here.
present them as fast.
TurboGrafx 16.
So what do we do about that?
They're so turbo.
Scientific atheist end of things, you say, well, those old stories are just superstitious science, second-rate, barbaric, archaic forms of science. You just dispense with them. They're nothing but trouble. And if you're on the fundamentalist side, you say, well, we'll try to shoehorn science into this framework, and really that doesn't work very well. It doesn't work very well with claims of evolution, for example. In fact, it works very badly. And that's a problem, because evolutionary theory is like, it's a killer theory. And it's really, really hard. And like, it's not a complete theory. There's lots of things we don't know about evolution, but trying to hand wave that away, that's not going to work without dispensing with most of biology. So that's a big problem. So here's another way of thinking about it. You don't just need one way of looking at the world. Maybe you need two ways.
Do.
Be sure how they should be
Hey,
related to one another.
give me another. Alright.
One problem is,
Do I even want to do that on the back? Who cares?
what's the world conceptualized as?
Face to edge.
Another is, how
Perimeter.
should you define yourself while you're alive? And there's no reason to assume that those questions can be answered using the same approach.
Sweet.
Physics has its methods, and chemistry has its methods, and biology has its methods. So
And they're supposed to just kind of butt up against each other like that.
can be
No,
bound to a domain.
that's not satisfactory.
Necessarily assume that you could use the
I'm not satisfied with that.
as a place of objects and to represent it as a place in
So I think instead I will make a peg, much as I had done on a portion of this model that you haven't even seen. The bottom of it. Why are we even talking about that? Just to do this.
maybe they can be brought together, although it's not obvious how, but that it's not
I can even delete these faces.
in favor of
Yeah.
and I think the
That's what I'm deciding to do. I need to talk to Mathul.
yourself in the world. You have to have a value system.
You have to have a value system, guys.
Value system. It's not possible.
Whoa.
Emotional health is dependent on a value system. The way you interact with other people is dependent on a value system. There's no getting away from it. And you say, well, there's no justification for any value system from a scientific perspective. You're going to draw that conclusion.
I should just like wrap the keyboard a lot so it seems like I'm doing something like
There's no
that requires that.
rationale for moving in any direction. There's not even really any rationale for living. And so people say things like that. Well, why the hell should I care what happens in a million years? Who's going to know the difference? It's like, yeah. True. Stupid, but true. And the reason I think it's stupid,
It's the name of my new band, Stupid But True.
I can take anything of any sort and find a context in which it's irrelevant. It's just a rational game. It's like, who cares if 100 children freeze to death in a blizzard? What difference is it going to make a billion years? Well, what do you say to someone who says that? You say, well, seems like the wrong frame of reference, bucko. That's what it looks like to me. Because at some point you question the damn frame of reference, not what you derive from it. And it certainly seems to me that situations like that
Is that right?
won't allow you to use that kind of frame of reference. There's something inhumane about it. And that trumps the logic, or at least it should. And if it doesn't, then all hell breaks loose, and that doesn't seem to be a good thing.
Goodness.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women
PC Engine.
exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. Well, it's the sort of thing that you'd expect a dramatist to pen, but that's how he looked at the world. And we still watch Shakespeare's plays some hundreds of years later, because there seems to be something essential captured in them. Something about how people do act, but more importantly, I think, how people should and shouldn't act. Because what fun is it going to a play that doesn't outline how someone should and how someone shouldn't act? You want a good guy, or a couple of them. Maybe they can be complex interminglings of good and bad, you know, that makes it more sophisticated. And you want a bad guy, or a bad, you know, you always want to see that contrasted, either within a character or between characters. And it's because you want to know how to live properly, that's how to be a good person, and you want to know how to live improperly, how to be a bad person, so you can watch out for people like that, or so you can figure out what that means for yourself. It's compelling, and that's another thing that's worth thinking about. Why is it compelling? And it's compelling to everyone. That's the thing that's so cool, is that there aren't that many phenomena that you can point to that are compelling to everyone. Music
Sweet.
is a very rare person who doesn't like at least some genre of music, no matter how narrow.
That's right. Music is important.
You're hard-pressed to find someone, especially if they're younger, who doesn't like stories.
Alright, so I don't know, this last part's not too bad.
I think it's not only not a waste of time, it's actually the most fundamentally important thing you can possibly do, because there's no difference between understanding stories and
Except for
figuring
maybe
out what's wrong in the world.
just the ratio, I think.
And there's a tight relationship.
The size of these things I don't agree with.
Structures your behavior. And the game
Control G, R,
you know, to some degree,
moving around.
we can all sit in this room.
Just groups, making groups, reassigning
Chunk of the
pivots,
that guides our behavior.
making things
So
nice and smooth.
when you're sitting in the classroom,
Let's go look at
distinguishes
our stream.
you know that that's part
I'd like to.
it's the same
Yeah, well, I'm going by the clock of this guy here.
in a value hierarchy.
It's about an hour and a half. If the uptime's about an hour, I'll stand up for a minute. I don't know. Actually, you're gonna do that now? Might as well get it out of the way. So I do have to update these guys on some stuff. I do have to take a quick stander. I want to make sure I bounce off of Robbie, because there are a couple of meetings that are coming up in the next couple of days, including our special events, which, why our stream looks super great. Whoa, look, I can tab. Amazing. Keyboard overlap. But anyway, I'll be right back. Give me just a second. Good. I have the new energy. Can I just get a video of all boot up sounds? Ever. Just every boot up sound. Oh, boot up and shutdown sounds for Windows. That's not confusing. Sweet. Alright, let's do it. Ta-da! Windows started. Alright. Windows has stopped. Windows is thinking about stopping. Windows is having a hard time. Oh wait, we're good. Oh wow, this is like a challenge that I do not recommend to anybody. The idea came to me in a dream.
You got a charger for an iPhone?
A charger for an iPhone, I do. Give me just a second. Oh, it's somewhere in this cavern. It probably isn't even plugged in. Ooh, look. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ah. Okay. Ba-bum. I'm digging this visualizer. Alright. So that part's done. Now there is a... There's like a bar type thing. Let's just do it. I'm gonna interactively create a box. Press 4. Can I do it from the top view? Guys, I just have to start up every Windows machine ever. You know, there just isn't a lot of variety in here. Can I get all game consoles? All PlayStation? Meh. I just want all... No. They couldn't, you know, is that the... Oh, here we go. I don't know why it has to be in 1080p, but, you know, whatever. Sure. These aren't in any particular order. That's the way I like it. Out of order. I should have left this on while I was standing outside talking. Alright. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Starting a PlayStation is like tuning an orchestra. It takes time. What the heck was that? That's pretty good. Have we gone through them all? Nope. We're just getting started. Skavox. You know, just to let you know it's ready to go. Or that an update is about to be downloaded. I hope that everybody watching feels like there's an update that's about to be downloaded. Cause I certainly feel that way. Sweet. Now get the heck off my lawn. I want you. And you. And I want to make you even smaller. What the heck is that? Master System. Alright. Now we're getting somewhere. When you started the Mega Drive, it did that, really? There's no way. That's the Dreamcast noise. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's a good one. The heck is that? Oh yeah. Honk. That's pretty bad. But the games on the Atari Jaguar are so darn exotic. Okay. Oh, this also has like that edge kind of burnt into it. Burnt into it. I feel like it started over. Also, these recordings that have that ridiculous gain suck. That's like... Really? That didn't make a noise. Maybe it did. Oh yeah. So when I was trying to play Metal Slug, dude, the other day, last night, it's triumphant. I have like the Humble Bundle version of all of those games. Which is great, don't get me wrong. What the fuck? And it's like 700 years long. Oh, now this one's in order. I see. I feel like I'm hosting like a weird battle of some sort. Multi. Select the face, then an edge, then wedge the face. Give it fewer divisions. 2 should be pretty good. Awesome. Da 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 da. Some game consoles don't even want you to know they're gonna start. That's awesome. Whoa. Don't hang out with your alcoholic friends anymore. No, no. Because all of this fanboyism, all of these jokes, all of these tropes really just turn into you regurgitating somebody else's joke. And their hard-earned comedy stars. All right. Yeah, I like that smoothing group better. The Mega CD drive. Now we're getting somewhere. Look at Sonic. It's Sega Sonic. Hey, it's Pulaka. What's going on? I think you can download the free student copies if you want to follow along tomorrow. Ah, I see, I see. What will we do tomorrow? Are we even streaming? Who can say? I do feel like this would have made a real good anime intro. Just saying. I think I would watch the Mega Drive anime. Oh, this makes good noise. Can I get closed caption? What is this? Sega CD. I don't know if I would have been that excited if I was a Sega CD. Quick question to the chat. If you were a game console, what would you be? You have 2 seconds to answer. Peace out. To be this good takes ages. The Sega Hard Girls anime. I haven't seen this. I don't know what's next. It's another Sega CD intro. I guess they're, you know. Just, can we get a port of StarCraft on everything, much in the same way that Doom is on everything? So, I guess this next ARM has to kind of like rotate between these two, right? As if there were this type of structure supporting it. Which just makes me ask all kinds of questions about... Oh, really? To be this good. It takes gimbal locking. So, I don't know. The way I see it is there's some other unit that probably isn't very different from, like, even this guy. Right? But I guess being more open. Center pivot. Just to rotate it around Y, it would appear. Great. Do 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 do. La 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 la. Mm-hmm. Man, press the start button already. Look, and can do stuff with color. I'm afraid to look, but I have to know. Oh gosh. Perfect. Ship it. Okay, so all of the console startups basically throughout the 90s were just this one game console. Totally reasonable. I do have to say that newer game consoles are way more Spartan in their presentation. They lack ambition. They lack glory. I need Photoshop. What's up, chat? What am I doing? Yeah. Okay. Jaguar Atari. Sweet. Look at him go. That's pretty good sound design, I'd say. Don't know how I feel about that one. Ah. You set the scene with the Giga Drive. Yes, that can kind of freely rotate around this other thing. Except for the length of its parent, which, meh. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. For... I guess we could move this whole thing down. Nah, it's a neat sound. Yeah, right. Duggan has brought up just what to do with he's looking for sounds, I think, game console sounds, and so I just played a bunch of them. Cause that's the kind of guy I am. I play sounds for breakfast. Yeah. All right. Honk. I think that the Xbox One is the most frightening. All sounds that could have been made with just one ARB 2600. It's neat, if not functional. At least we don't have collision with our parent thing. That's really what I cared about. Like, yeah, you're not gonna rotate all the way through. Let's be honest. Alright, and so I have this arm piece done. We can make it sort of unique. It'll have a sort of unique front, I think. Can I just cap this? Fill hole. That's pretty lousy hole filling. I could. Please, you call that hole filling? Actually, you know what? I do call that hole filling. There's no there. Okay, now we're just in like a playlist of weird game console intros. You know, we've taken it too far. Wow, that went on for a while. This doesn't make any sense. I would like to see. I'm not looking for chat. I'd like to see how long this is. Oh, when you guys are on. I would assume that our stream is just down according to Twitch. It's kind of live, but constantly buffering. That's cool. This guy is going to teach you how to do a merge transformation with yourself
Why you're doing what you're doing
in the background.
to its ultimate limit, so you can't get a story that's super ordinary.
Me neither. We're just doing it. I don't remember how the conversation started either. Welcome, DPower07, to PowerBlock on Mint Potion.
Even if, 80% of your motivation is to get a good stable
Today, we're making robot arms.
there's still something outside
Because there is just one more type of robot arm that I want.
to be able to function properly in a good stable job if you're
I guess there's another variant of this kind of angular style somewhere else in the concept. But
think that's very much analogous to
I'm pretty satisfied. I'm pretty satisfied with what we've got going on.
And so fundamentally, that's what we're doing in the classroom. And the reason we can all organize our behavior is because we accept that framework consciously. Consciously would be we know how to articulate it. Unconsciously, it's, well, it doesn't matter. We know how to act. Whether we know that can say the rules or not, doesn't matter. Same as a wolf pack. We know the
You know the damn rules.
you could describe them with an articulated value structure. Let's take a break. Okay,
I already
so
did
let's
that.
go back
Oh,
to
he's
the
back.
complexity
Okay.
problem. See, I actually think that in some
It's
sense
got
it's a
that.
fundamental
You know,
problem.
this is the stream where you're gonna watch me just acquire carpal tunnel syndrome. It's gonna be great.
They think that death is the fundamental problem. And that's a good argument because it's definitely a fundamental problem, but I think it's a subset of the complexity problem. And the reason I think that is because sometimes people's lives become so complex that they'd rather be dead. So, and the reason they seek death through suicide is to make the complexity go away, because complexity causes suffering if it's uncontrolled. things just get beyond your control. And that can happen, if you're hit by 3 or 4 catastrophes at the same time.
Okay.
Have, the political system collapses, there's hyperinflation, you lose your job, and you have someone that you love or 2 people die, and maybe you get cancer, something like that. Like that, those things happen to people, and they just think, well, there's no getting out of this. Like, it's just too much. And one of the things that's very interesting about being a psychologist is that what you learn if you're going to be a psychologist is that people come to you with mental
What the?
illnesses, and that's almost never true.
We're gonna just go in all forward vectors. That's
They cannot stay on top
that
of
will
it
not
in any
work
way.
for
It
me.
does make it look like they're just going to get more complicated. And so then that causes symptoms. It's like there's this old idea, it's sort of a metaphor for genetic susceptibility. Take a balloon and blow it up until it's beyond its tolerance, it's going to blow out at the weakest point. Well, that's sort of what a genetic susceptibility is. If I just keep adding complexity on top of you, at some point you'll blow out at your weakest point. Maybe you'll get physiologically ill, maybe you'll
Kind of like that overlap. Maybe I'll like
disorder, maybe you'll get OCD, maybe you'll get depressed, whatever. There'll be something about
make
you
it
that's
a
at this
bit
point,
more
if I just
noticeable.
push, that's where you'll blow out. So that's a mental illness, but those things almost never just happen. Sometimes, but not very often. Usually people have just been hammered like 2 or 3 different ways, and then they collapse in the direction of their biological weakness, and then maybe you put them back together, but it's almost always a complexity-related phenomena rather than a mental illness-related phenomena. Not always, but almost always. So, okay, so now, you got this complexity problem, and you think, well, you deal with it conceptually. And that's sort of akin to the idea that it's belief systems that protect you from death anxiety. The ideas are roughly comparable, but again, that's
Sweet.
wrong. It's the sort of thing
It just has key inputs.
because psychologists think that everything about you happens inside your head, so to speak, in your psyche. That's not true.
And I want to bevel this.
Completely.
No,
So
I want to offset
this
it.
is a really good example. Like, we know the oldest cities. This is a medieval city in France. Beautiful old city. Old
It's
cities
about
were walled.
here.
And the reason for that was because they were places of wealth, and if you didn't put walls around them, then other people would come in and steal everything and kill you. So, like, having some walls was a good idea. Like, the same as having walls in your house is a good idea. Walls between your rooms are a good idea, or borders between categories are a good idea. And so, part of the way you simplify the world is by building walls around your space, because then a whole bunch of things can't come in. And so you don't even have to think about them. It's not conceptual, it's practical. And so, one of the things I think I figured out recently is the fundamental political difference between people.
Talk to me.
It looks to me like the fundamental political difference is how many walls should there be around your stuff? And the ultimate liberal answer is 0. And the ultimate conservative answer is, well, bring on those walls, man. And what's interesting about both those perspectives, first of all, is that there's temperamental contributions to them, and second, that they're both valid. So, one of the mysteries, I believe, that psychometric psychology right now is why
I kind of like it. I can't say I love it.
politics are those particular
I'm not gonna marry it. Don't even. Don't even. That's good.
Well, the biggest predictors of
No fighting.
forget about the politically correct types for a minute. But on the
Ed
liberal
battling
conservative
against
axis, the
photographs.
liberals are low in conscientiousness and high in openness, and the conservatives are high in conscientiousness and low in openness. And so then you think, well, why those 2 traits? That's the first question. And the second question is, why those 2 traits together, given that they're not very highly correlated, right? They're really quite independent. So why do they co-vary along the political axis?
So he's talking about
This is the
star
reason.
behavioral traits
Open people
in these categories
like to live on the periphery
that
of boundaries, and they like to break boundaries between things because interesting things happen when you think a different way, when you think
you
outside
can
of the
use
box.
to define
That's what people do. They always think outside of the box, no matter what box you put them in. And sometimes you meet
people's
people that are so
behavior.
they're completely disorganized. Their thought process is almost completely associational, like a dreamer. They just jump from one thing to another. They're very interesting. to watch.
Sweet.
It's very hard for those people
You
to
look like you have a purpose.
absolutely everything.
Alright, how
Their
about these
attention
guys over
is
here?
all over the place. And so they're open.
Hmm.
Does go
Hello, chat.
So, and then if they're low in conscientiousness, they don't see any utility in order. And orderly people, because that's part of conscientiousness and the biggest determiner of political belief in the conscientious domain, the orderly people like to have everything in its separate place and properly structured. And so, their world is box, inside a shelf of boxes, and then that shelf of boxes is inside another box. And
I received a text message.
nice, neat, tight, nothing
But from who?
touching, and
What from
every
whom?
box is the same thing.
I don't know. I have too many pockets. This jacket, let me tell you.
See the utility in that.
This pocket
As far as
laden.
being able to tell is also associated with disgust sensitivity.
Ah, good.
People are disgusted, generally speaking, when things that shouldn't be touching are touching, like something horrible stuck to you, for example. That produces a very visceral sense of disgust, and it's a boundary violation, because that's what disgust is. It's indexes a boundary violation, and you can
Maybe I'll make the snout of this thing a little bit,
from one another as individuals,
more distinct. This area does not quite
because there's huge advantages
read the way I like it to.
and there's huge dangers when people mingle and mix. And so at some point you say, well, the dangers are overwhelming the positives, and then another point you say, well, the positives are overwhelming the dangers, and you have a continual argument about that with yourself, but more importantly with people who have different temperaments than you. And the terrible temptation is to assume that only those people who have your temperament are correct. And that's just, those other temperaments wouldn't exist if that was true. I mean, if you look at it from, if you look at it from a strictly biological perspective. So anyways, one of the things we do to simplify the world is to frame it. So you look at this, you've got
How is
wall
school?
number 1, and then you have wall number 2.
Have you learned much more about
The walls, you have walls
the world of
all
programming the internet?
inside the houses, there are walls as well. And so everything is, and what you do when you put walls
Hope it is
around
going.
you make part of the
I hope it is going
world
well or
a
easier.
house is so that everybody and his dog isn't in your house. You just want those few people that you can barely tolerate in your house, and not all those other strangers, and God only knows what they're going to do. You'll still invite people in now and then,
Good.
because maybe you're sick and tired and bored of the people that are in your house.
It's the Jordan Peterson fusion technique hour, where he fuses with himself to create a other being, or lemonade flavored decency. Now I just need a tube from any of these other objects, and then it's good. And I model these at hard angles because it's easier to use the manipulation tools that are oriented with the axis of this plane, right? Our world axis. I think this guy has a pretty good looking needle. So maybe I'll just take those guys out. Can I just duplicate them and extract them? I would just have to extract. I can't remember is it this guy? There we go. Oh, that's crazy. Whoa, this is a miracle. I should animate this and do something with that. This is how those visualizations are created. Oh, shit. Alright, anyway. That clearly wasn't helpful. Alright.
Yes, strength, yes, wealth, yes, education, definitely. So it's unbelievably discriminatory. And so you might say, well, why is that justifiable? And it seems to me that it's something like
I just want your nozzle over on my robot.
if I get to say no to you. It's something like that. We've agreed that everybody gets to discriminate on that basis, and because everybody can do it, then it's fair. It's something like that. It's very much worth thinking about. I don't know if you know this, but in Huxley's book, Brave New World, where the family had been completely demolished, right, and children were conceived in bottles and given and produced in factories. So the whole idea of the relationship between sex and procreation had become a taboo. One of the
Delete transformation.
was everyone belongs to everyone else. And so it was actually a social faux pas to refuse to sleep with someone, just as it was a social faux pas to have any exclusionary relationship. Because another thing you might know,
So how does freezing transformations make that possible?
love with someone. It's like
Let's use world orientation.
and all the rest of
Yes, because I do want this rotation.
So it's the ultimate exclusionary act, right? And yet we presume that that's an acceptable, not only acceptable, we demand that as a
Alright,
right.
and then
Well, that's
now
where
that I have that, I can get more out of this.
Anyways, okay, so what you're doing is by agreeing to this segregation and boxing, what you're doing is carving off little bits of the world that are simple enough so that someone like you can live for some amount of time there without too much danger. And everyone agrees to do that, roughly speaking, because everybody needs to engage in that process of simplification and safety provision. And so we have towns, and the towns are nothing but boxes, but inside boxes. So there's a good schematic of a little house, and you can see that even inside the same place, we segregate off rooms for different purposes. And then what's interesting too is that we set up those rooms as little dramatic spaces, right? So you furnish them, and you furnish them with things that tell you how to behave in that room. So a table and chairs tells you that's where you're going to eat, and that's where people are going to sit. And they're going to sit facing each other. That has certain implications because the chairs don't face the walls; they face each other. And you have a living room where it's comfortable and there's a fire, and you're setting up little stages basically.
I can dig it.
Just like kids do when they pretend. They all assign each other roles.
So, do I put these models all over our little building?
Well, let's sit in the living room. Well,
I mean, this guy still isn't unramped. Well, parts of it might be, but who am I to say?
so it's a bound place. There's rules to the bond.
That's adorable. That's adorable.
If you open, you're going to discuss all sorts of things, and if you're conservative and closed, then you're going to discuss a very, very small subset of things. And so hopefully everybody will agree on that. So that's one form of binding. Then another is, well, we put boxes around each other when it comes to the rooms. And so I think this is a picture from
Preston, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Oh, man.
Never been.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Double bacon cheeseburger.
Yeah.
That's the staple.
Yeah.
Pretty rockin' awesome.
I might be moved to do the same here in a minute.
I know where it is, so I'll drive you there.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
And they have orange bang,
Yes, I do.
which I just got a large orange bang. So I'm going all the way with that, right?
I have $5 in my Steam wallet, too. Dang. Hey, Atorix in chat. I haven't seen that dude in a while. What's with the big track? Whoa. The big track is, it's from our scene. And I had this, kind of model standing in. I could actually import our glowing body and kind of do that. Yeah, let's finish the block out and see what's really missing. I think that's where I'll focus, or what I'll do for the remainder of this stream, or this lecture as it stands. Because I have the lights; those are all kind of placed. And yeah, I still have about 45 minutes of the Spirit Finger introduction. 13 whole people in chat. Thank you for joining. If you don't know who I am, I'm Ben. We're doing this thing. I'm also Angry Crow, that's right. Yeah, the background track is a lecture by Jordan Peterson, who's a psychology and philosophy professor at the University of Toronto. And he actually uploads his tracks every year, right? Or uploads his courses every year. He's been doing so for, I would say, the last 5 or 6 years. And they kind of go into the origin of just interesting society. The concept art is great. So we're just kind of taking that from the concept art to the other art. But now I have a mesh that represents this guy right here. Who else is in chat? Somebody just said hi. Hello, Otomoki. Yes. Yes, we're 3Ding it up. We're 3Ding it up. We're going to be putting it in Unreal, I would say in the next couple of weeks. I've just been unwrapping. A lot of these assets are, well, these are mapped. I don't know if they're unwrapped. So let me get a checker material in. Even though like that's not really like, that's not super impressive, the checker material. But I have a couple more assets we can import. So let's do that. So I have assets to unwrap, and I think all of these are unwrapped. We did trim, little trim pieces. I have a character base that we can use for our, gosh, I don't know what it's actually going to import. I don't know why it takes so long to import the data for this file. I feel like there's an error somewhere in that. I need to save that out somewhere else, or delete any partnering like information. It might be construction history. One of the things that we tried to do before. Why is this taking so long? You can, oh, you can see it. I was gonna say you can't see this, but in the bottom left corner of my screen, it's just attempting to import everything. Oh, you know what? It's unwrapping. Yeah, it's unwrapping data. Whatever. Escape to cancel. Here we go. And so the 50-foot woman is going to destroy the universe. But we made this, or I made this a while ago. Or I guess a week, maybe? It was one of those times when I was not streaming. I'm trying to show you the interesting stuff. I'm still apparently having issues with the scene. I'm worried that Ableton, for some reason, doesn't call my Ableton. Worried that Ableton's gonna crash. But I have a pretty good to go triangulated mesh that I can't really. I guess I can sort of do stuff with. So we'll rotate you 90 degrees and scale it down. And notice our, you know, what is that? Quarter scale, right? But we'll have like a bunch of these cats flying through the scene as well. Let's apply, I think I have the larger height arm shader, effect shader, Stingray, any of these Stingray physical base shaders. It's going to take a while to import map data. What is it doing? I should just let it run. And we can listen and chat. She's got a lovely figure. What? Thank you. Jackal apology. Shovel Knight 4 switch launch. That's pretty cool stuff. Let's see. Who are these folks? Cave ones? I see. We're just getting to know each other. Tamaki? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I will attempt to remember that. Stay regular. If anyone's new or, I don't know, ghosting, it seems like we're lurking. Just hang out. Day went by. Yeah, she's very metallic now. But we had to fix it from the concept, or I don't know. I changed it a bit from the concept so that she wasn't like a 700,000 booty power character. So there we go. We'll just do that. I want to duplicate special. Which I don't know what. I'm pressing some other tool. Duplicate. Move. I did it again. Q.
It's more like conceptualization of and practice practice of the proper way of.
And then edit. Duplicate with transform. Shift D. I just want to make more of these robots.
You're a living thing, and you're overwhelming.
And they're just gonna go away. So anyway, there are a bunch of these guys, right? And we can make a pose for them. Right now they're in just kind of like a T pose. It's not.
And it's complicated. Like
super great, but I can definitely use them to figure out the scale at which I want to make the bend around a curve for like this type of element. So we have these guys. I'm trying to like realign this so that I can see all the elements, kind of like the concepts, which I think is pretty low. But this guy will shoot down a rail.
I'm making that case is because the fact that you have a body and the fact that you have a nervous system is another set of limitations on how it is that you're going to interact with the world.
So probably a ways back to save this scene.
Well, you have a brain, and the brain. See if I can. So that's the prefrontal. That's the frontal cortex there, and that's the temporal cortex there, and that's the.
I kind of get rid of some of my duplicates.
And these were, if I remember.
Although that distance seems pretty reasonable, I still want to have like. I don't really have. Let's see, because these are visible, but I can't.
They're slightly specialized, so this cortex back here is
temp walls and boxes. So let's take them out of the render mode. Now they're in, I guess, template, right? So now I can select them again. Wait, here we go. And maneuver them as we need. I'll select this thing, right? So like, imagine this is a gate. That will have, before that, some kind of highway or cross-section type of thing going through here. And then also a ceiling. So I'll take this guy down, and I'll like make a division. Plan out voluntary actions. The prefrontal cortex grew out of that in the course of evolution. Right. So you might or think, well, just right now it's a placeholder, I guess. Why does it seem to be off, not perpendicular? That's not too bad. So that's all goes this one, this way. These should probably move up. This, to me, seems like a gate. Like in the concept, I think I've mentioned this before. I want to make like a giant kind of toothed structure. So that's what that looks like in my mind. Also, we don't really know the route for this. It does seem kind of narrow and out of scale. Let's see. Hey, it's Jake.
And that's a weird one, you know, because people think about intelligence as planning and forward thinking and all of that, but that's also how they think about conscientiousness as planful behavior and the consideration of future possibilities. But intelligence and conscientiousness have zero correlation. So you think, well, why is that?
Yes, VR girls with Archrome booty. We have to turn down the Archrome booty. Who are we to judge? You know what the good Lord has decided will be the booty of the century. Let's see. But for visual development nonsense, I'm digging it. For metal chicks, I've unwrapped every one of these guys, which we can. I really don't want to replace. But I can definitely move because a lot of this stuff is duplicable. Duplicatable.
You wouldn't be able to think, and the fact that you can abstract means that you can separate your thinking from your action. So that's why, as far as I can tell, there's very little correlation between conscientiousness and intelligence. It's like it has to be that way, because you have to be able to think about things that you wouldn't do if you're going to think. So, and in generally, we think of people who
I just want this, that, and the other thing. I want to transform it across the z-axis as a group. Like really, we have these all separated down in different files, so I can actually group and combine them so that they don't act all stupid. I can center pivots, I can edit, I'm going to duplicate it. Special? Wait, did that work? No. Probably did.
And of course that makes sense.
So I'm gonna look at my
You can
options
use
for
memory
duplicating it
from
special.
that perspective too,
It's gonna scale it
if you know
across
something, you
Z,
know that your memory of the world is
not
something like
X.
an objective record of objective events, but it's really not very much like that at all.
And I also want to
Besides,
move
who
it
cares?
in that same direction.
You don't
Just
need
like,
an accurate representation
I don't know,
of
100
all
units or
facts
something,
about
1,000
the
units. No, that's probably ridiculous.
In fact, all
Apply.
the things weigh you down. Who cares what color the walls are, what color the ceiling is, what
Awesome.
color the paint is?
Works
all
for me.
that's
Because that's the opposite side, yeah?
already known.
Yeah.
Partly because it has no relationship whatsoever to
Yeah,
what you need to do in
yeah,
order to control
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So what you're doing when you remember, as far as I can tell, is that you're mining your experience for information.
And then do I have, like, this is like the
It's purely pragmatic.
basic ape
So,
version, which might be
you know,
better
IT
for
trained
the
people
next
have
asset that I want to kind of
post-traumatic
pull
disorder
from
or
this
symptoms of
set.
post-traumatic
And
disorder.
basically what I'm thinking is,
So
in
let's
top
say
view,
They got
this is
post-traumatic
side view.
disorder because a relationship collapsed on them suddenly. It's quite common.
I want to make a corner, you know?
Then they don't know what to do.
So I take this
Especially if
guy
they're conscientious, because then they just tear themselves
right
to
here,
pieces,
huh?
trying to figure out what they did wrong
Yeah.
to bring about that event.
Yes, yes. Or maybe the whole thing. No, we can make a corner. We can make like an end cap as well. But I definitely want to make
So that the probability
a conveyor
of
bend.
sales again is minimized,
Um,
and their mind won't leave them alone till they
so let's make the curve along which we will like to bend in the curves and surfaces tab. There's this arc thing, right? 3-point circular arc. Brilliant. Nah, it might be better to use control vertexes. Might be better to use a circle. Really.
Obsessing about what went wrong is you walk them through
Here we
do a
go.
situational analysis first, because one of the oversimplifications that people make, and this
You
is
might not be able to see it, but I know a circle was
if
created.
something bad happened to me, I must have done something to deserve it. Now that's actually a pretty functional idea, because it suggests that
Whoa.
there are things about your behavior that you could change that would make the future better. But the problem is that, say if it's the collapse of a relationship and you've been with
Do I have
that
caps
person
lock
for
on?
8 years or longer, well, you did so many things with them that the idea
Yeah.
that you did something wrong pretty much extends to every single thing you ever did with them. And that's, how are you going to fix that? And so that's part of the trauma, actually. The trauma is 80 million snakes all at the same time. It's like, well, forget it. You don't have time to go through all that material. And so partly what you do is with people, and this is what you should do with yourself too.
I wonder if I should do a
situational
half turn.
analysis.
Yeah.
It's like, don't be assuming necessarily that the thing that happened to you only happened to you because of what you did or didn't do. There's all sorts of factors at play. So one of the things that sometimes I do with clients is if they were in a relationship,
You know what I'm
with
saying?
some reasonable personality information,
You know what I'm saying. We're making a curve.
incompatible. You know, like if you're a highly conscientious person and your partner is very, very low in conscientiousness, it's like, well, good luck to you two. How the hell are you ever going to work that out? Because you want everything to be exactly where it's supposed to be, and you're working all the time.
Wish I
and
could
your
see
partner
grid
could care less whether
subdivisions.
things were where they're supposed to be, and they're not going to work. And you can butt heads about that forever. The probability that you're going to shift it, you know, except to some minor degree.
Good news about 1080 is you can see a
So
straight
sometimes
line
you
pretty
end up with
easily.
someone with whom you get along very well on one temperamental dimension, and you're an absolute catastrophe on the other 4. And
I'm also
the probability
imagining
you're going to be able to mediate a
what that'll
huge
look like.
temperamental difference is
What?
extremely low. You wouldn't expect yourself to mediate
There
a
we
huge
go.
intellectual difference, right? You're going to make the other person smarter, or maybe you smarter, depending on who you're with. It's like, no, probably not. A bit, maybe. So you do a situational analysis.
Extruding edge along curve. Truly amazing. And that's kind of all we have to done.
And so that's another example of the pragmatic
We need more divisions.
of thought. Well then, within the brain itself, apart from the major subdivisions which we just described, there are minor subdivisions, and here's a bunch of them listed: the caudate nucleus, the cerebral cortex, the huge newest part of the brain.
And maybe the issue
Square
is at
meter.
origin.
If you unfold it, it's all folded up. And most of the processes.
Oh, it's Hot Wheels Simulator 7000. Why is it green?
Thalamus, that's a place where a lot of the information in the brain appears.
I think
to
it's
be integrated.
actually a
The cerebellum
glitch,
helps you with
a
balancing
graphical
and
error,
complex motor activities.
or it's having an
Remember,
issue
that's the one
flipping,
we were
or
talking before.
my
One of
curve
the
is
things that
going
it
through the
does
ground here.
seems to do is compare
No,
the
no,
model of
no.
the world as it's unfolding with the model that you desire to be occurring, and then keeps
Oh, you know
track
what?
of
This is
mismatches.
above
And when
ground.
it detects a mismatch, then it disinhibits other emotional and motivational centers, and that's the beginning of your response to the unknown. So
And can
one
I
is the
get you
hypothalamus.
to
I'll go on, so there you
rotate
go. It's a little tiny part of
correctly?
the brain that's pretty much at the top of the spinal cord. See, it's really small.
I'm just gonna plug in a bunch of
Well,
values.
it turns out that imagine
Key
this is a
faces
cat
together,
brain, for
local
example,
center.
and you take off the whole cat brain except for the hypothalamus, which
What the?
you take off the whole cortex. For example.
That did not go the way I wanted it to. Let's do that again.
The cat's
Maybe
still
slightly
alive,
differently.
carefully, but it doesn't have much of a brain, so you might think, well, that cat would just do nothing. But cat's actually pretty functional.
Ah, it could also be the center of
And that's because
this
the
curve that's
hypothalamus
throwing
is
that
an
off.
incredibly important part
Let's
of
look at
the
those
brain.
control
These
vertexes,
what
yo.
I would say constitute the major frames, the major psychological frames. And so like a decorticate cat can still eat and drink and regulate its body temperature
What is it?
and engage in defensive aggression.
What kind of
Its
cat is this
female
guy
can
talking
still
about?
mate. Male can't, because male mating behavior is more complicated.
Okay.
And as long as you keep it in a bounded environment, it can function reasonably well. It's hyper curious though, which is very weird because you wouldn't expect a cat with no brain to be curious about anything, but
A cat with no brain, that's what that
And it
is.
seems to be because
Hypocortical.
you are curious about something
Got
because
it.
you've investigated it.
We're talking about brainless cats on the
There's no
stream?
representation of it that's functional. And that functional representation then stands for the thing itself, and then you can ignore it. And so you learn to ignore things. They're interesting to begin with, and then you learn to ignore them. And so one of the things that I think artists do, if they're great artists, is remind you that there's more to things than you see now that you've learned to ignore them. So you get a kind of a hallucinogenic painting of flowers like Van Gogh might produce, like his famous irises, which I think sold for like $220 million or something outrageous. It's like what Van Gogh is trying to show you is what those flowers looked like before you thought you could see them. Because now you flower and you walk by, you know. You don't see it at all because you're off to get a peanut butter sandwich or something. You don't have time to glory in the wonder of the world. You know, you've got something practical to do. So, all right, so we're going to zoom in on the hypothalamus here. And what you see, of course, when you zoom in on the hypothalamus is that it's not a thing. It's a whole bunch of things. And then it's one of those horrible whole bunches of things that are made out of even more bunches of things, and they're made out of more bunches of things. And what's really interesting about going down the body from an analytic perspective is it doesn't seem to get less complex as you go farther down. You know, like some of the, I should actually show you that. I haven't shown you
Good.
that little
Those are
video
flat.
of, DNA.
This is the beginning of the curve.
Oh, I better show you that.
You are in edge mode.
It's so
I
cool.
want to extrude this edge
So you definitely
along a spline, like so.
I encountered the artworks of David Goodsell, who is a molecular biologist at the Scripps Institute. And his pictures are all, everything's accurate, it's all to scale. And his work illuminated for me what the molecular world inside us is like. So this is the
Now I can no longer select the spline.
left-hand corner, you've got this yellow-green area. The yellow-green area is the fluids in the blood, which is mostly water, but it's also antibodies, sugars, hormones, that kind of thing. And the red region is a slice into a red blood cell, and those red molecules are hemoglobin. They are actually red. That's what gives blood its color. And hemoglobin acts as a molecular sponge to soak up the oxygen in your lungs and then carry it to other parts of the body. I was very much inspired
could
by
do that.
this image many years ago, and I wondered whether we could use
Anyway, let's try that.
graphics to represent the molecular
Wait.
world.
Do it again. Give me the options.
That's how I really began. So let's begin. This is DNA in its classic double helix form, and it's from X-ray crystallography, so it's an accurate model of DNA. If we unwind the double helix,
This is still an
and
issue.
the two strands, you see these things that look like teeth. Those are the letters of genetic code, the 25,000 genes you've got written in your DNA. This is what they typically talk about, the
What?
genetic code. This is what they're talking about. But I want to talk about a different aspect of DNA science, and that is the physical nature of DNA. And it's these two strands that run in opposite directions for reasons I can't go into right now, but they physically run in opposite directions, which creates a number of complications for your living cells. as you're about to see, most particularly when DNA is being copied. And so,
Oh look, there's all kinds of weird mesh data on the inside of this thing.
of the actual DNA replication machine that's occurring right now inside your body, at least 2002 biology. So DNA is entering the production line from the left.
There are more options.
And it hits this collection, this miniature biochemical machines that are pulling apart the DNA strand and making it.
Divisions, yes, twists.
So DNA comes in and hits this
I want twists.
donut-shaped strand.
Hey.
It's ripped apart into its two strands. One strand can be copied
No.
directly
No.
down to the bottom there, but things aren't so simple.
Look,
for
it's
the other strand
DNA.
because it must be copied backwards. So
What?
it's thrown out repeatedly in these loops and copied one section at a time, creating two new DNA molecules. Now you have billions of this machine right now whirring the right way inside you, copying your DNA with
Sweet.
fidelity. It's an accurate representation, and it's pretty much at the correct speed for what is occurring inside you. But I've left out error correction and a bunch of other things. This was work from a number of years ago. Thank you.
That's cool. So this guy's using a TED Talk in the middle of his thing. What the? This is a very meta stream.
It's jiggling and wiggling there because of the surrounding supermolecules, which I've stripped away so you can see something. DNA is about 2 nanometers across, which is really quite tiny. But in any
Okay, what are you doing?
Each strand of DNA is about 30 to 40 million.
I do not want to
nanometers
place.
long. So to keep the DNA organized, to regulate access to the genetic code, it's wrapped around these purple proteins. I've labeled them purple here.
I think we might actually have to do this with curves. That makes more sense to me.
This huge package of DNA is called a chromosome, and we'll come back to chromosomes in a minute. We're pulling out, we're zooming out
We're talking about
through a
chromosomes.
nuclear core, which is sort of the gateway to this compartment. That holds all of
Maybe I
these
can make a
nucleus.
curve out of an
All of
edge.
this field of
Let's do
view
that.
is about a semester's worth of biology, and I've got 7 minutes, so we're not going to be able to do that today.
Modify.
This is the way a living cell looks down a light microscope, and it's been filmed under time lapse, which is why you can see it moving. The nuclear envelope breaks down. These sausage-shaped things are the chromosomes. We'll focus on them. They go through this very striking motion that is focused on these little red spots. When the cell feels it's ready to go, it rips apart the chromosome. One set of DNA goes to one side, the other
I want
side
a
gets the
loft
other set of
now,
DNA,
because we're using
identical copies of DNA, and then the cell
surfaces.
splits down the middle. And again, you have
Where's
billions
that
of cells
button?
undergoing
This guy?
this process right now inside of you.
No, bi-rail,
Now we're going to
no.
rewind and just focus on the chromosomes and look at its structure and describe it. So again, here we are at that
This
equator
is a
moment.
rotates.
The chromosomes
Loft,
line up, and if
yes.
we isolate just one chromosome, we're going to pull it out and have a look at its structure. So this is one of the biggest
Oh, that's
molecular
perfect.
structures that you have, in, at least as far as we've
Gosh.
discovered so far, inside of us. So this is a single chromosome, and you have 2 strands of DNA in each chromosome. One is bundled up into one sausage. The other strand is bundled up into the other sausage. These things that look like whiskers
said
sticking out
sausage.
from either side are the dynamic scaffolding of the cell. They're called
Oh no, Loft
nucleus.
is trying to make a mesh between these two parts.
It's red region. I've labeled it red here. And it's the interface between the dynamic scaffolding and the chromosomes. It is obviously central to the movement.
Talking about these guys.
We have no idea, really, as to how it's achieving that movement. We've been studying this thing called the kinetic core for over 100 years. It's an intense study, and we're still just beginning to
try it.
discover what it's all about. It is
I don't
made
know.
up of about
Let's try.
200 different types of proteins, thousands of proteins in total. It is a signal broadcasting system. It broadcasts through chemical signals, telling the rest of the cell when it's ready, when it feels that everything is aligned and ready to go for the separation of the chromosomes. It is able to couple onto the growing and shrinking microtubules. It's transiently, it's involved with the growing of the microtubules, and it's able to transiently couple onto it. It's also attention.
Make it simple.
It's able to feel when the cell is ready, when the chromosome is correctly positioned.
going
It's
here?
turning green here because it feels that everything is just right. And you'll see that there's one little last bit that's still remaining red, and it's walked away down the microtubules.
So it's,
That is
yeah,
the
you turn the
signal
divisions up to get around the
broadcasting
curve.
system. Stop signal.
Notice how it's like
Walked away.
turning, it's rotating the
mechanical.
thing over.
It's molecular
Like,
clockwork.
twist
This is
should
how
be
it
on
works on a
0,
molecular scale.
right?
So with a little bit of molecular eye candy, we've
But
got
it
kinases,
weirds me
which are
out that
really
that's like a
powerful ones.
default
They're
setting.
molecular courier molecules walking one
And
way.
also that
Here
it's
are the
green.
They're carrying that broadcasting
But,
system, and they've
you
got
know,
their
I'm
long
not,
legs,
I'm
so
not
they
like
zip around
against
molecules
green
and so on.
things
So
or
again,
whatever.
This is all derived accurately from the science. The problem is we can't show it to you any other way.
Question is, why wouldn't that work
Frontier
for
of science.
this other thing, yeah, because it's the
Mind-blowing.
same idea.
Discovering this stuff is certainly a pleasurable incentive to work in science. But most medical researchers, this is just discovering this stuff is simply steps along the path to the big goals, which are to eradicate disease, to eliminate the suffering and the
Also
misery
seems
that
like it
disease
is
causes, and to lift people out of poverty.
tending downward.
Those side bumpers.
So
giving us
that's
some
just
weird
so ridiculously
numbers I
mind-blowing.
can't deal with.
It's almost unbearable.
Yeah.
I mean, to think about that as clockwork even is a pretty strange idea, because, well, those little things
I don't
walk
think
over
the
obstacles.
curve had those
How
same
does that happen?
properties.
They're just molecules. So it's so cool. 'Cause
But
when
this
you
thing
go
is
down,
flat now.
simple, but
We could rebuild it.
and you know, he said at the beginning when they were taking when the little machines were taking that DNA apart, that he didn't show the error correcting. You know, there's other little machines that go along and see if everything's okay, and if it isn't, they cut it out and put a right piece in. It's like, yeah, things we don't understand. There's no shortage of them, that's for sure. Okay, so
Assign a
what I'm doing in
new
some sense is walking
material.
you through a psychophysiological or
Just
representation
give me
of
one of these.
Piaget's developmental process, I would say. So I wanted to zero in on the hypothalamus because
Well, that's
it
reasonable.
seems to me the thing that sets the most basic frames. And so we'll go ahead with that.
So we'll just have to build it up from here.
So you see that it's made up of all these little parts. And so it's called the hypothalamus more for convenience than because it's a homogeneous set of structures, because it's not a homogeneous set of structures. And this is something to consider very carefully when you're thinking about the terminology that psychologists use or that you might use to describe your own behavior. Because, you know, you can roughly, there is a psychology of motivation and there's a psychology of emotion. And you might think, well, emotion and motivation are categorically different entities. But they're not. In fact, there's no
We
such
make a
thing as a
duplicate of this
uniform
thing,
set of
just to
motivations.
be
And there's
safe.
no such thing as a uniform set of emotions. And the distinction between a motivation and an emotion is unclear, to say the least. And that's partly because the physiological substructures that subsume what we call motivations and what we call emotions. And it's not like there's a motivation center that's homogeneous. The closest is the hypothalamus, but it's made of structures that are qualitatively different. And then the emotions, because I have to use that descriptive terminology because we have to communicate about it somehow. There's all sorts of different structures in the brain that contribute to emotional expression, and they're not even in the same place, much less composed of identical structure or function. So, you know, we have these shorthands that we use to divide up the world, but they're awkward and untenable as the level of resolution increases. But anyways, I'm still going to go with motivation and emotion because it's a useful simplification. But you can see with the hypothalamus that there's all these, you know, complicated little subsystems in there. And I showed you that video to show you just how complicated the subsystems are, all the way down to really to the molecular level. How those little machines manage what they do is completely beyond me. You know, to call it clockwork when those little things that
Do you know
walk-
that you
walk
can
over
select
obstacles,
one
it's like
edge
clockwork does one thing, you know.
and then
only.
press shift like
Click,
through
click,
an
click,
edge
that's
loop
all it does.
and select all the
No
shit in between, like
exceptions.
double click
This thing
to get
walks
that all
over
those edges?
obstacles to get where it's going. It's like, who knows what's going on down
Pretty
there.
cool.
But it works well enough, so here we are. Weirdly enough.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, if they can
motivation
be
seems to
connected,
be
right?
the initial
Like
framing
faces can be
process.
connected.
And you come,
So I can
you come
select
into
these
the world
faces,
with the motivation
then,
systems
you know.
roughly ready to go.
I
Babies are
like.
hungry.
I don't like
Babies
this
get cold.
big base.
Babies want
I'm
something to
gonna
drink. You know, so
scale
the
this
world already
back.
comes, in some sense, they
Just
come
a
into
bit.
the world with pre-packaged
The
categories.
curve
for
is such a
existence,
like
and those
weird
are the categories
illusion.
that are going to aid their
That's fine.
survival. And you know, they're not simple either. It's not so simple. It's, well, hunger, thirst, pleasure, pain, anxiety. You know,
So I can take
classic
this
sort of-
edge and
and
double
classic
click.
Emotions, sadness, joy,
Extrude those
and
guys.
so forth. Those systems are already there, but babies have more complicated systems too. Like the system for exploration is already in place, and the system for play, which is really complicated, it's already in place. And so, you know, you come into the world with a human nature, and the nature seems to be distributed across these subsystems.
Yeah, it just
That's one
has
way of
negative
thinking about it.
76
It's also
degrees
useful to
is
think
a
about
setting
the
that
operation
I
of those
can't
subsystems
determine
as
whether it's
something.
legit.
Think about them as games
Default like that.
with an aim. You could think about them as stories. You could think about
What?
them as frames of reference. You
Sweet.
could think about them as action patterns. all of those, and you can think about them as
Chat seems to
sub-personalities,
be
which I
on a
actually
roll.
think is maybe the best way to think about them. Because if you're hungry, it's not a deterministic drive. It's a sub-personality that has a goal, and then it has a bunch of action patterns that are going to work in reference to that goal. It has a bunch of perceptions that suit that goal, and it organizes your emotional responses around that goal. And so to think about it as a personality is it's a much more intelligent way to look at it. One other thing about Skinner's rats, Skinner could get rats to do almost everything, and he would reward them with food. And so he had a simple rat model, but his rats were starved down to 75% of their normal body weight. So not only were they not social, gregarious rats, like rats are, because they were isolated, they were genetically altered from wild rats, but they also weren't as complex as a real rat because they were starving. And so, but a starving rat is a pretty good model of a rat, and a rat is a pretty good model of a person. But a lot of our models of simple behavior
Wait, what are you trying to say?
are based on starving, isolated rats. So, anyways, how to think about motivation? We'll think about it from the hypothalamic perspective. So we could say one thing that motivation does is set goals. We could say that emotions track progress towards goals. And I'm going to use that schema even though it's not exactly right. So you say, well, motivation determines where you're going to aim. So if you're hungry, you're going to aim at something to eat. And then that will organize your perceptions so that you zero out everything that isn't relevant to that task, which is almost everything. You concentrate on those few things that are going to facilitate your movement forward. When you encounter those things, that produces positive emotion as you move through the world towards your goal, and you see that things are laying themselves out that facilitate your movement forward. Those things cause positive emotion. And if you encounter anything that gets in the way, then that produces negative emotion, and it can be like threat, because you're not supposed to encounter something that gets in the way. It can be anger, so that you move it away. It can be frustration, disappointment, grief. Those would, if you had a response that serious to an obstacle, it would probably punish the little motivated frame right out of existence. So you walk downstairs and, I don't know,
I should have stuck with,
contracting company set a wrecking ball through your kitchen.
walk this back a few hundred
That's gonna be
iterations.
disappointing.
I should have stuck with
You don't
a
keep eating
cleaner.
a peanut butter sandwich in the rubble.
It's
That
so
little
hard to
frame
keep
is
this
going to
curve.
be punished out of existence, and some new goal is going to pop
But-
up in its stead. And one of the things that we're going to try to sort out is how do you
We're
decide?
getting there. I mean, I
when
gotta
you've
keep some
encountered
of
an
what
obstacle
was
that's
here,
so
like
big
these
that you
guys,
should
right?
just quit and go do something else. 'Cause that's
Whoa.
not obvious.
These guys are related, apparently.
You can get into counter.
Oh no, it's just
persistence
selecting both
pretty easily.
types.
So we
Like,
don't know how to solve
whoa.
that problem. It's a really complicated one. So anyways, we're going to
Whoa.
work on that scenario. Your hypothalamus
Alright.
pops up.
Be my
micro
guide.
that are directly relevant to biological
I'll be your
survival.
guide through the world of what the
produces a
was
frame
that?
of reference.
I've never
it's
seen
not a
that.
goal, it's
Oh
not a
god.
drive, and it's not a collection of behaviors. It's a little personality. And the personality has a viewpoint, it has thoughts that go along with it, it has perceptions, it has action tendencies, all of that. You can see this in addiction, most particularly. So one of the things that you find
Oh, it seems
often
well
with
enough
people who are
aligned, I
alcoholic
think.
is they lie all the time. And that's because when
But it
they
is
built a
definitely
little alcohol-dependent personality inside of themselves,
misshapen.
or a big one, maybe it's 90% of their personality. And one of the things that consists of is all the rationalizations that they've used over the years to justify their addiction to themselves and to other people. And so the addiction has a personality. And so when the person is off, or maybe they're addicted to meth or something like that, where the addiction is more, it's more short-term powerful, than I would say, than an alcohol addiction. They'll say anything, and the words are just tools used to get towards the goal. And if they happen to be deceptive, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're just practical tools to get towards the goal. And then when you get towards the goal and you take a nice shot of meth or something like that,
A
you
shot of
reinforce
meth.
all those rationales that
You heard it
used
here
to get
first.
the drug, and then the next time you're even a better deceiver and liar. So okay, so we're going to say motivations. One way to
Excuse
think
me?
about it is they set goals, but it's not the right way of thinking about it. They produce a whole
Are there
framework
two
of
edges here?
interpretation. And so we're going to think about that framework of
No.
interpretation. And then emotions emerge inside of that. So that's it. So the world is framed, motivation set goals. You could say the world has to be framed. So motivation sets that frame, includes goals, emotions, perceptions, and actions. And then actions
Sweet.
track progress. So positive emotion says you're moving forward properly towards your goal. And if you encounter something you don't expect, you stop. That's anxiety. It's like, oh, we're not where we thought we were. And so we don't know what to do. So we should stop because we don't know where we are, what we're doing. Stop, frozen. And then
See, that'll push
the
this
more
side down.
powerful negative emotions like pain, they might make you get out of there. So
That won't.
emotions, forward, stop, reverse. That's your emotions within that motivated frame. So, and that's another example of how your mind is embedded in your body. Your emotions are like they're offshoots of action tendencies. That's the right way to think about it. Because action is everything fundamentally. So what are some basic motivations? Most of these are regulated by the hypothalamus, by the way, and that tells you just how important a control system it is. The other thing that's useful to know about the hypothalamus is that it has projections going up from it that are like tree trunks, and inhibitory projections coming down that are like grapevines. So you can kind of control your hypothalamus as long as it's not on too much, but if it's on in any serious way, it's like it wins. So partly what you do to stop yourself from falling under the dominion of your hypothalamus is to never ever be anywhere where its action is necessary, right? You don't want to go into a biker bar because you might find yourself in a situation where panicked defensive aggression is immediately necessary. You probably don't want that. You don't want the panic, you don't want the terror, you don't want the frenzied fight, you don't want any of that. You don't want to have to run away in absolute panic. So you just don't go there. And
Just don't go to biker bars,
a
guys.
huge part of how we regulate our emotions is just by never going anywhere where we have to experience them. And so that has very
This
little to
biker
do
bar
with
is
control
messing with my
and
emotions right
everything to
now.
do with staying where you belong. So, okay. So, basic motivations. Hunger, thirst, pain. Pain is not regulated by the hypothalamus. That's a different circuit. Anger/aggression. Thermoregulation. Panic and escape. Affiliation and care. Sexual desire. Exploration. Play. And you can kind of break those in. You can kind of break those into
I change this to
the
world
classic
space. Yeah.
Darwinian categories too, and say, well, there's a set of motivations that go along with self-maintenance. That'd be your survival. Ingestive and defensive. See, I've sort of coded them there. So the self-maintenance, there's an ingestive set of basic motivations that go with self-maintenance. You say that's hunger, thirst. There's a set of defensive motivations, pain, anger, thermoregulation, panic and escape. And then there's motivations that are associated with reproduction, affiliation, care, and sexual desire. And then I put exploration and play sort of outside of that. I would say because those two things serve both of these approximately equally. So what I tried to do is take the basic motivations and then nest them inside a fundamental Darwinian framework so that you could see how the biological process of evolution has manifested itself and then sort of differentiated into these
Sweet.
fundamental
Sorta.
biological
I
systems.
like that. I like that
So-
shape a lot. And the way the
Okay, so this is a rat brain flat map.
And there's only one way to know if
So
it
that's
actually
basically
worked.
what you would see of
And
a
that's by
rat's brain
doing
if you
duplicate
flattened it
special
out,
across the
unrolled it,
center.
flattened it out, and then made it two-dimensional. And you can see here,
Right.
so this is
So
the
if I can
hypothalamus.
transform it successfully in Z, negative Z, and I don't need to
And
move
you
it
can see
over
that
that
it's made out
far,
of these different nuclei.
but if it lines
They
up,
sort of correspond to those shapes that I showed you in the
then
human
we have a
hypothalamus
decent looking
earlier.
arc.
You see that there's different systems. There's the system
And,
for drinking is outlined in green.
that can, feed
and,
into another
the
terminal,
reproductive
or it can
system,
feed
there's two of
into
them,
like a
and they're
straight
outlined in
angle or something like that.
I think it's
But
red.
those assets are important.
looks sharp, I like that.
Yeah, we do
red, and
have
the defensive
definitely a
ones
way
are
to go,
magenta.
like,
So
detail-wise.
those are- you can think about
But we can
those as
also, I
three
think, distribute along
fundamental value
curves and
systems
do some of that
of
other kind of stuff. But
living creatures with complex nervous
foundation is
systems
there,
as
and
far
that's
as the
the
hypothalamus is
Right, you've
concerned.
got the
And then,
framework now.
given what I told you about the hypothalamus, which is
oh yeah,
you hardly need the rest of your brain at all, as long as you have a hypothalamus. It's worth thinking that those
Nope.
are very
It's a task
fundamental to
worthwhile.
value per se.
what?
Now, you might think if you only need the damn hypothalamus, why bother with the rest of the brain at all?
That's
That's
a
a very useful
pain in the ass. Yeah,
Especially because most creatures don't have much of a brain. So, but it
But
seems
they're,
to be something
know,
like, well, you've got your eating,
They have,
drinking system, your
they have a really
reproductive
good
system,
thing
your
going.
defensive system. But the problem is that those things, first of all, can conflict. Are you too hungry to sleep or too sleepy to eat?
that's a good
That's a
question.
pretty simple kind of contradiction. Are you more angry at your partner or do you want sexual relations more? So so they can conflict in the present, but then they can conflict with other people doing the same thing. and they can conflict across time. And so partly the reason that you need the rest of your brain is to solve the problems that emerge from the solutions that the hypothalamus offers. And so because you don't want to just eat and drink and reproduce and defend yourself. You want to eat now, later, tomorrow, next week, and next month, while you're able to engage in reproductive activity and defend yourself in multiple contexts with a whole bunch of people for as long as you can possibly manage it. And so you need the rest of your brain to calculate that. And so what the rest of your brain has to do, roughly speaking, is regulate these and also elaborate them up into like into something that's integrated inside you.
Holding down middle mouse.
And then so that personality
And it'll
is integrated
basically
with the
keep
personality of the
transforming
brain.
on the selected
And so you can
axis.
think about it as an
So this is,
emergent
you know,
process. This is one of the things
scaling
I really
on
like about
both
Piaget.
X and Z,
So
or
Dan
Y and
Stark
Z,
Piaget
or X
is
and
the
Y.
only thinker I know, really, who really addressed the problem of the evolution of value systems. Like he never
And Shift and right click
nailed it
will
down to
give
the
you this
physiology
menu,
because there
which I
wasn't
use
enough knowledge
all
of
the time.
physiology when he did his work. But it maps really nicely onto the physiology. But, you know, he said, well,
And then
but he
G
got it right
will
anyways.
repeat
He
the
said,
last
you come into the
function,
world with a handful of
right? And so that'll allow me to do this.
pre-established reflexes. Okay, we're going to complicate that up a bit. No, you come into the world with a handful of micro-personalities that are centered around these fundamental motivational axes, okay? And then that gets you started. And that has motor output as well as perceptions and all of that that's associated with it. And then as you interact initially, let's say with your mother, you start to learn how to integrate those things in some sort of social context because you form a relationship with your mother right off the bat. And so you're starting to figure out how to produce patterned and stable interactions between those motivational systems on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. And one of the things you do with kids, it's really important to do this with kids, is you want to get them onto some sort of a routine. Because what the routine is actually is the beginnings of the system that integrates all of these underlying biological systems into some sort of unity. Because they have to sleep and wake up. So you want to nail that down so it's predictable. You know, they have to eat, they have to stay warm, and they need to do that in a manner that's stable. And so it's to your great benefit as a parent that you get islands
Interesting.
of stability.
And the other side's
planted
kind of
in the
done
life
because
of
they're
your kid,
referenced,
so
but
that some of this gets simplified so that the kid isn't constantly preoccupied with domination by these different motivations.
does that mean that they're going to reference each
So
other?
it's a
Yeah,
useful
that's
thing to know
no.
because you might think, well, you don't want to impose any structure on the baby. It's
That's
like,
fair.
no, wrong. You don't
What's
want to
up?
be a tyrant about it, but
There you
there's
go.
no difference between that structure and the emergence of the child's adaptation to the world. And to some degree, what you're trying to do is free them up from arbitrary domination by these underlying motivational systems. You know, because if a baby gets too tired, it's a horrible little thing. It'll just scream at you nonstop, and it's not happy about it. It's like it's not good for anyone for that to happen. And so the faster you have to do it in relationship with the child. You know, some will sleep right away in a schedule almost immediately, and other kids are harder to
Sweet.
get their circadian rhythms regulated. So you have to attend to the individual differences that characterize the child, but you're still trying to establish some stable
what have we done
harmony out
in
of this mishmash of initial
10? Yeah.
systems. So,
Like, I can count.
all right, so that's sort of a physiological look.
Shovel
This is more
Knight
of a conceptual
64.
look at it. So I said that each of these systems.
Is that,
you
can
think
people
about in a
make
bunch of
games that
different ways.
have
Think
the,
about it as something that
like
sets a goal.
the like a 64
I'm
name, like,
hungry and I don't want to be hungry.
even though it has nothing to do with the 64? Or do you have to
So the
actually
hunger
have like a sequel
And the
working
vision
up
of the
to
satiation
every
of the hunger are part
iteration
of the
at that
same
point?
frame. And so, if you're hungry, you go into the kitchen. You know that already. That's part of your procedural knowledge about how the
saying.
world works. And then what you're going to look for are only those things that are relevant to what you're trying to do in the kitchen. Everything else is zeroed out. You won't even really see it. And why would you?
What are you doing?
You want to see the things that are relevant to the task at hand. And so that's the thing that's so cool, I think, because what it means is that you see the things that are relevant to the task at hand. And so here's something to think about. Let's say that you see a whole bunch of things in the world that you don't want to see, you know, that make you constantly miserable and unhappy. One thing you might ask yourself is, are you sure that your goals are proper? Because your goals determine what you see. Now, not 100%, obviously. You can be thinking about the homework you're going to do and step off a curb and be hit by a van. It's like you're going to get hit by the van regardless of how you've oriented your perceptions.
It's
like,
truly
in all
magical.
likelihood. So I'm not trying to argue for pure solipsism, but it is very interesting to consider that since you see in relationship to what you want, that a very
All right,
large amount
that
of what
gives
you
me a lot
see
more
is dependent
flexibility.
on what you're aiming at.
It's not as detailed
So
as I
one
want it
issue
to be,
is, if your life is wretched and miserable,
but I'm digging
one
that.
thing to think about is whether or not what you're aiming at is the right thing to be aiming at. Nothing is
I want to make a
exactly the wrong
thing
answer to that.
similar
You get nothing. So
for like the
you're
rails
gonna
on the top
experience
of
a
the
tremendous
room.
amount of misery and not very much joy.
I don't know if I'll do the thing
anyways, you've got this
extruding
little
along
frame.
curves or
You're
what.
somewhere, and it's not good enough.
There are these
and you're going
repeated
somewhere else that's
lights
going to be better.
and
And
grids.
what better depends upon is
I just hurt.
the state of these underlying
I just got that
biological
pain.
systems. And then more
It's
complexly, as those biological systems get integrated into a personality and into the social world, then the frame and the goal is going to be dependent on that more complex hierarchical organization. So you're not in here because you're hungry. You're in here because if you get a degree, maybe you don't ever have to be hungry. So the hunger is properly incorporated into your, you don't want to be cold, you don't want to freeze to death in the winter, you don't want to be on the street. So your higher order goals are long-term, socially negotiated solutions to the problems that are implicit in your being. That might be one way of thinking about it. And the micro elements of this, so you could say I'm hungry, that's a physiological state and a conception. I have a vision of how I'm going to solve that, but then, that's an abstraction. But what you do to transform point A into point B is not an abstraction. You act. So if you're hungry, you actually move your body, say down.
So I need a couple different types of greeble. I have like a flat extrusion, which is not very interesting. Let's do this.
Your hypothetical solution to your problem,
Face.
that's the mind. But the manner in which you incarnate that solution, that's no longer abstract. So, people are always trying to solve the mind-body problem. And that's, as far as I can tell, that's how you solve it, is you have abstractions, but they're not abstractions that are representations of the world. They're abstractions that are representations of action patterns. And the way those are implemented in the world is that you act them. And so it's strange because you've got this weird level of control, I can move my arm, I seem to be able to do that voluntarily, but I really have no idea how I'm doing it. Like I don't have conscious access exactly to the musculature, except technically, and I certainly have no idea what I'm doing chemically to make those muscles transform. But my abstractions ground out in this movement, and I can observe the movement and modify it, but I have no conscious access whatsoever to the microprocesses that are making that possible. I have no idea why that is. Probably because I'm not smart enough. That would be my guess, right? Evolution is only going to allow your mind to control those elements of your being that you're smart enough to control. And so you don't get voluntary control over your heartbeat, for example, because you just forget. And then you'd be wandering around, and then you'd forget to beat your heart, and bang, you'd be dead. So you don't get to do that. So, all right, so all these different, I classified these again as self-propagation and self-maintenance motivations. And so if you're too hot, well, you want to go somewhere cooler, and if you're too cool, you want to go somewhere hotter. And same if you're thirsty and hungry. And for self-propagation, well, you get lonesome, and maybe you have some sexual desire, and each of those different systems competes for access to this central frame, and that's something like the contents of your consciousness at any given time. So up pops a desire, but it's the wrong way of thinking about it. Because a desire sounds like something that's pushing you forward, but the desire is goal, framework, emotion, perception, action, pattern, all at the same time. It's a little personality, or it's a little story. Actually, when you describe the operation of one of these things, that's when you're telling a story. So I was somewhere, I needed something, I went and got it. It's a boring little story, but that's the basic unit of a story, right? Because I don't care to hear what you're doing unless you had a reason for doing it. So I just say, what's the point of the story? And the point of the story is the point. It's directional, right? It says, I went from here to there, that's the point. Here's how I did it, that's the point. And you're interested in that because maybe you want to know how to do it too. And you won't have to struggle through it like I did, you could just listen. And so we're always throwing these little units of information back and forth to each other. And for good reason. I want to know what your point is. Because better I learn it from you than make all the mistakes that you had to make when you were learning it. And human beings, we got that figured out, that's for sure. So, okay, I'm going to just explain this, and then we'll stop. All right, so we're in one of those frames now, and we're going from point A to point B. And so the question is, how does the world lay itself out? Okay, so the first thing to understand, and this is partly the reason I showed you the gorilla
axis
frame,
is that, X?
the first thing a frame does for you is make almost everything irrelevant. And that's so great, because that's what you want. You want almost everything to be irrelevant, because otherwise you're going to be so flooded with information that that's what hallucinogens do, at least in their initial stages, is they take away that filter and make everything relevant. You can read about that in Huxley's Doors of Perception. He does a great job of describing the initial stages of a mescaline experience. And what happens is that all of the memory, in some sense, that regulates his perceptions is stripped off. And so he sees everything glowing and alive and magical, like he'd never encountered it before, which is exactly how you would see something if all your memory about it was gone. And so he sees things as way more complex and interesting than he normally sees them. Well, that's fine, but if you're like that all the time, then you end up in a ditch starving to death or something. It's not commensurate with normal life. That's what it looks like. And so your perceptions are just shrunk and restricted to
We're just
the
hand
bare minimum
greebling.
necessary to keep you moving in the direction that you're moving. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to make things irrelevant. Now, if you're with someone in a relationship, partly what you want them to do is to help you continue making most of their possibility irrelevant.
One more time.
Because one of the things, so you say, well, we have a friendship, let's say, we have a friendship, okay? So that means you've agreed to act in a friendly manner towards me and to support me. There's all sorts of other ways you could act, like a myriad of them. And I'm going to do the same for you. So we're simpler to each other than we would normally be. And then you go and do something that betrays me. It's like, bang, that whole simplification is gone. And all those parts of you that were supposed to be irrelevant because we were playing the same game, they're dead relevant, and I don't know who the hell you are. And so that's really rough, and people do not like that. It's this emergent mismatch between their desires and the way the world is manifesting itself. So one of the issues of complexity is that when you hit an obstacle, everything that you have agreed with other people to make irrelevant is relevant. And that's generally a disconcerting experience. Now you can, you might want to toy a little bit with that in a relationship, so maybe you encourage your partner to dress differently, or you go do different things or something because you don't want to be stuck in exactly the same old rut. And so what you'll agree is how you can both deviate an interesting amount. But that's voluntary and controlled. It's not the same at all as having that little mess of 80 million snakes pop up right in front of you, which is the last thing you want to have happen. And so it's so weird, because one of the things that we're striving to do constantly is to keep most of the world irrelevant. And our cultural systems are designed precisely for that purpose. And part of what you do when you disrupt them is you force people to consider a far more range of relevance than they are even vaguely comfortable or vaguely competent to manage. And it just burns them to a crisp. Because what your body does is, if all of a sudden everything around you is irrelevant, like I could say, you're stripped naked, I take you in a helicopter, drop you right into the middle of a jungle at midnight. It's like, you're not bored.
Come back tomorrow for
Standing there, frozen, paralyzed, everything is interest. Well, too bad for you.
for being stripped down and thrown off of a helicopter into the middle of a jungle at midnight.
So, your heart rate's going to be at 160 for like 2 days, and then something will eat you, and your problems will be over. So, all right. So this diagram basically suggests this is how you break up the world when you're going from.
So I wanted to find a way to do
render
this
almost
in
everything
Houdini that was
irrelevant.
like sensible.
Hooray.
But there's a lot going
And then
on,
what
like in
happens
my
is the
brain,
rest of the
right?
world is broken up
That
into
is
obstacles
qualifying
within
or
your
disqualifying
and tools
shapes.
that facilitate your movement forward. And that's actually what you see when you
Part of it's like, oh, so what are the
when you come into
character
this
of the
room,
channels,
these are
right?
obstacles
And
insofar
how
as you can
far
walk
or
through them.
close to an
Those
edge
are
do I
tools
want to
insofar
produce
as you can
this,
sit on them and watch
you
them
know,
fly.
feature?
This is a tool.
Oh, okay. Do I want to, you know,
And these are tools, and this is a tool, and I'm a tool for, although I never admit it, but anyways, I'm a tool because you need to take this class in
Right.
order to advance towards your degree. And so basically what you see in the world
then I want
are
to grow my
entities of
selection and
functional
deselect that
significance.
middle face.
Those are not
Like
objects.
so
They're not
much of that
So,
process, well,
and that's
deselect.
very much worth considering because see, we're
So much
trying
of this
to
process is
build
like,
up a case, at least in part, for
it's
analyzing the
creative.
nature
It's
of
just
the
it's just
structures within
looking
which
at
you organize your perceptions. And we tend
the
to
situation
think
that I
there's
have
an
in front of me in
element
terms of
perception. It's
actual.
not true. It's not true.
Take a couple
They're
steps back.
predicated on relevance conception. Does it help you? Does it get in your way? Or is it irrelevant? That's what you want to know. If it helps you, you're happy about it. If it gets in your way, you're negatively predisposed towards it. If it's irrelevant, it's invisible. And so if your little scheme is functional, your little frame is functional, then most of the things that you encounter are mildly
Insert.
positive. And that's how you know that you know what you're doing. That's how you validate the entire frame. So,
There
okay,
we go.
good.
But finding just like random answers to our. Whoa, we'll do the next one next time. Anyway, but I'm thinking. Let me finish kind of greebling. There are plugins actually that do this, which. For that reason, I'm glad that Bennett checked out, because I know he'd be like, oh, why aren't you just pressing the Greeble button and making it beautiful? To which I say, sniff my sock. Because then I know it. But yeah, for some reason in the concept, I see this as like a big, I don't know, I've probably illustrated it by hand a billion times. But this door in the distance. How's chat? Hypes. David Wise is composing for Snake Pass. That is pretty cool. Snake Pass looks really good too. Oh man. Sorry for just catching up with chat. It's gonna be a switch something. Can I say orgy? Is that reasonable? Because it's not going to be an orgy, but it'll be like the band orgy. Stop whatever you're doing. Okay, let's double check my thing. Why am I still I'm forever buffering. I hope you can see me. I'm Angry Crow in chat. This is Mint Potion. You've watched me kind of build the last couple of parts into our NuRen block out, doing viz dev. We're making the look. For our introduction scene, for a couple of other things, we're not going to have very huge and complex environments. We're going to have stuff that's generated. We're going to have a lot of visual, like, kind of like our thing here. Let me. Actually, I don't know. There's a like we're gonna have wallpaper art. How to best describe that? But a lot of this experience will be visualizers, much like this. I actually got this from T-Mad 40 Blue. If you see him in chat, say thanks for the inspiration. It's a visualizer called Plane 9. And we're just going to take properties from this. No, we're just going to take these shaders and drop in Unreal, and it's done. No. There's more to do. Let's see. Where did I put this thing? Oh, it is hidden and it's not in the semi. I am understanding of that. But it's been a good couple hours of streaming with you guys. Hopefully you've got yourself a Nintendo lined up. I'm excited to play a lot of these games. A lot of indies being showcased coming up. I wonder, I guess the only thing is it gonna fuel the hype for the indie apocalypse I don't think that's gonna happen. Cause indie games are as old as games, right? Or at least that method of having a small software company make a cool thing. They just somehow become large companies when they're really successful. Go figure. I don't know how that happened. Fine. So, not opposed to any of that. I think, if people keep playing games, then other people will probably keep making them. Or I guess buying them, right? People have been playing games since olden times, since the Egyptian, before that. If you could like come up with rules for Stick and Rock, the game, somebody was playing it. And it probably wasn't until Milton Ramsey figured out a way to capitalize on that there wasn't a specific Stick and Rock collection that you need to play Stick and Rock proper. Sanctified by Stick and Rock Associates of Milton Ramsey. That's not funny at all. I do like Tetris. I think I'll greeble this door in my spare time. I'm gonna cut it up. We're gonna duplicate it. We're gonna use the knife tool to make a shape on this thing. Where's my wide view? Yes. This guy. Multi-cut. Could just kind of switch it around. We're so excited about Nintendo. We're gonna have we're just gonna have a really good time with that. See, I can make like the shape that I want in the thing, and then like cut through it, right? Or like make a curve and then project the curve through a combined mesh, and then clean up geometry for a couple hours. It's gonna be awesome. I'm actually excited. I'm also excited to have a hamburger sandwich of some sort. I'm inspired. I'm inspired by you, chat. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I'm Angry Crow, I guess, on the internet. Because I'm on the internet. DIY4L. I want to be on screen. Oh, do you have a coat like this? I need to get it repaired. This is my dad gave it to me. It's got like holes in like it's extra. They're extra pockets, honestly. I wonder. I bet Iterok and I look very similar, even though I have a photo of him. He, she, it. Nah. But I gotta send out more stuff. I got things to make. Our links ban? No, you are absolutely welcome to post links. Our chat has not been abused so far. The second that we do have a viral outbreak in chat or whatever, then we'll be fine. Day? I don't know. I don't know what any of this means. Is that the name of this jacket? Because it's old. It's from like the Gap from like 15 years ago. I think I remember when my dad got this jacket. But I got it last winter, a couple months ago. Anyway, I'm Angry Crow. It's a weird thing to say. I'll see you next time on PowerBlock.